Here's a sobering opinion. The habits people formed around podcast listening are changing and will forever be changed. This isn't the new normal. This is just new. Normal is and always has been an illusion. Hello and welcome to another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. So listenership is down across the board in podcasting. That was the latest information provided by at least those who responded to James Cridland of podnews.net's apostrophe S. Podnews.net asked people to share evidence of changes in listenership during the pandemic, and surprise, it's down. Not everybody, but by and large, it's down in a big way. And I think that is to be expected. And the reason that I think it's to be expected is that people are changing their habits. We are habitual creatures. It is our pattern-recognizing brain and habit-forming brain that let us, as a species, get to where we are today. Habits are important. We form them all the time. And our routines have been disrupted. Your listeners' routines have been disrupted in a big way. Some way worse than others, but nonetheless, just about everyone, just about every listener you have is having their routine impacted in some way. That's what's causing listenership to go down right now. People aren't going to the gym nearly as often as they used to. And listening on a treadmill or a StairMaster or just doing whatever else, it's a great way to listen to podcasts. People aren't commuting as often as they used to. Did you drive this weekend at all? Did you drive last week at all? Have you seen how the streets are largely empty? Less windshield time means less listenership to everything. Spotify announced last week that they're seeing a 20% reduction in overall music listening. Again, people's habits have changed. That's it. That's the reality of life, right? We see these surveys that tell us that a lot of listenership happens at home. People say when they're asked on surveys, where do you listen? At home. Well, A, I'm not sure that's true. But B, even if it is true, your home life has changed. Especially if you're working from home now, or especially if your listeners have kids and now suddenly have to be teachers as well, habits have changed. Now, the good news you think I'm about to say is that, but it won't happen forever, and everybody's going to go back to normal as soon as this pandemic is over. Only that's not what I'm going to tell you, because that's not true. There's a myth out there about the new normal, and I hate that term. I really hate that term because it's wrong. What we're seeing right now is definitely new and is becoming normal, but normalcy is an illusion. Things change and flux all the time. But more importantly than that, the old way of listening to podcasts that the majority of people did, it's not coming back. It's just not. Even when we get past this pandemic, sure, people will return to the gym. I totally get that. Yes, people will still be in their cars doing windshield time listening. Those habits are, those things people did in the past will return. However, understand that we're learning new things as people about what we do during our normal days. We're learning new habits. Here's the important part. Businesses, where we spend a lot of our time either as employees or frequenting as consumers, are also learning new habits. We might discover as a large, let me change the way I say that. Employers might discover after having their people work from home for 2 or 3 months that they don't necessarily need those gigantic buildings to hold everyone when they're doing jobs that they really don't need to be in the office for. Maybe this work from home thing, maybe working from alternate locations, at least on a, if not a forever basis, but on a regular basis, might become a reality as a cost-saving measure for these people. These are the sorts of habits that we're actually seeing changed drastically. And because this isn't a hunker down for a couple of weeks and things will get better, it is a long-term thing. The more this new world is imposing itself on us, the more those new habits will be ingrained. So I say this to my working podcaster friends and clients and family out there. If you are doing something like waiting until all of this returns to normal, it's not going to. At least not the normal that you were used to. Will it get better? Of course. Will podcast listenership increase? It will. It'll definitely increase. It'll go back to and above levels that we had today. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the habits people have around listening have changed and will forever be changed. That means you, the podcast creator, need to think about what that means. What does your content look like, sound like, feel like to these people with their new habits? When does it come out? How often does it come out? What's the length of time you do? All of those things that you have been banking on for the years or months you've been doing your podcasts are all changing. For the good, for the bad, doesn't matter. That's anthropomorphizing change. No, it's just changing. And how we come on the other side of this will look different than it looks like today. So, habits. Habits are changing. Your habits are changing as a podcaster, but most importantly, our listeners' habits are changing. So now, something I would like for you to do for me as you sit and ponder those changes. You probably know someone, one person at least, that you have talked to who, not in podcasting yet, who knows you're in podcasting, who has said to you something like, well, I could use this downtime to launch a podcast. By the way, that happened a lot during the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, and afterwards, a huge number of people jumped into the creative spaces or did things that they didn't normally do with their job. We might see that happen again in podcasting, and I see that as a good thing. So if you right now have one person who has told you, hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast, send them this show, because I want them to understand, and you want them to understand, that the reality of the way we're podcasting yesterday isn't the way we're going to podcast tomorrow, simply because of listenership changes. I think they need to hear this episode so that they understand that they should just get started and work on their own new normal, work on the habits that people have right now, and just deal with them as they go forward. So that's it. I wish I wasn't here talking about the pandemic stuff, but we're probably going to for a while, because this is about making you, helping you think about the big changes, the big things in podcasting, the things you should be thinking about, you need to be thinking about as a working podcaster. Guess where we live? This is my new. Is it normal? I don't know. Where we're at today. One thing I do know, I shall be back tomorrow with yet another podcast, Pontifications. Cheers.